My name is Bob Kelly. I'm a general manager in the server and tools business, and I have responsibility for the infrastructure servers, which you know as the Windows Server product family, our System Center management offerings, and our newly announced Forefront technology and product offerings. The title of this presentation is, Are You Ready? And what I really mean by that is, there are a number of things that we're actually doing as a company and as an industry to help you be more prepared and to optimize your infrastructure for your business. But are you ready? Are you ready for all that change? Are you ready for that amount of new data, new input, new content, new capacity, new infrastructure that you need to deploy? Last night, those of you who came to the keynote saw that Microsoft is committed to 4 promises. And the 4 promises are really important, not because they're a marketing campaign, because in fact they're absolutely not. They are in fact a technology and business commitment to you. We are building products from the ground up, what we call workload by workload, to win, to enable you to be successful workload by workload, doing what you need to do for your business. At the same time, there's a reason we're building those workloads, and that's these promises. We want to be able to stand up here in front of you and say that we are committed to these things for your business, and that technologies and products that we build have a reason, that they're actually there to help you move your business forward. Additionally, we're going to introduce a term today called capabilities. Products and technologies are interesting only insofar as they give you the capability to do something within your business. And that's actually what I want to talk to you about today. And specifically for this session, I'm going to talk to you about 2 of the promises: manage complexity, achieve agility, and protect information, control access. So with that, let's just go ahead and jump right in. One thing I also wanted to point out is I'm going to try and get through as much slideware as I can in about 25-30 minutes to get to more smoking demos, as Bob said last night. We're going to do a lot of demos in there because this is, in fact, the kickoff for the entire infrastructure track. When we talk to you and to other customers, what we hear from you is, wow, there are a lot of challenges. There are a lot of things coming my way, and quite frankly, I don't know how to deal with all of it at the same time. Whether it's the rapid pace of innovation in the technology, as Ray Ozzie spoke about last night, is another services disruption, another disruption coming at us very, very quickly. How do I deal with that change? How do I bring that change into my environment and take advantage of those advances without disrupting my current business? Regulatory compliance, the world over. You know, in the US we know it as SOX, Sarbanes-Oxley, but there's also a JSOX. There's also the European Commission working on compliance. Compliance regulation is a fact of life, and in fact it's going to get more so. And how do we put systems in place to enable you to actually deal with those compliance issues? Competition. Look, you're in business for a reason. You're in business to go win. You want to win more customers. You want to win more market share for what you're doing. And those pressures are very, very real. Security threats. How many of you have been watching? May was an awful month. If you've been watching the sort of security space at all, 26.5 million records for veterans were stolen from the VA last week. 26.5 million. It's going to cost $100 to $500 million to mitigate that. And how did it happen? A disgruntled employee walked off with the laptop, and his house got burglarized. Okay? Just that data walks away. Okay? More and more are we seeing things like this, where these security threats are right at the core of your business. We have poorly integrated solutions. We have the move from box management to service management. We have the heterogeneous needs. All of these things are very real challenges for managing and securing your infrastructure today. And in fact, a piece of work that was done by Forrester indicated that as much as 7 out of every $10 in an IT budget is going towards maintaining existing systems, and only $3 are going towards bringing new capabilities online. Somehow we got to shift that balance. And the reality is it'll never go away. It's not like the maintenance issues go away, but it's got to be much more in your favor, where you're delivering more capability to the business. So what does it mean when we say manage complexity, achieve agility, and what do we want to stand for with this promise? Specifically, we want to move from complexity to efficiency. Let's just be honest with ourselves. Complexity in our lives is just a way of life. It's just how it works. And none of us can stand up here and say to you, hey, look, buy our software and all that complexity goes away. I know it and you know it. But there is, in fact, a lot of unnecessary complexity that we can work through and eliminate. And that is the core element of being able to manage your complexity to achieve a greater business agility. In the end, every customer I know wants their infrastructure to be responsive to their business needs, not the other way around. And the only way to get there is to manage and reduce some of the complexity. In the end, you want your business to always be running, but to get there, you have to cut away this complexity and establish what we call a responsive infrastructure. How many of you have heard of the Dynamic Systems Initiative? The Dynamic System, at least a few of you, that's great. The Dynamic Systems Initiative is in fact our strategy, our technical strategy for how to enable a much more dynamic infrastructure, a world that is, it can fulfill that promise of managing complexity and achieving agility. There are 3 pillars to the Dynamic Systems Initiative. The first is a virtualized infrastructure. A virtualized infrastructure, as Bob Muglia pointed out last night, has multiple layers. And focusing on the ability to sort of make logical what today is only physical helps you have an infrastructure where you can move things around much more flexibly and respond to business demand. When you got to say an end of month big hit, you got to be able to move more servers online quickly. To have a virtualized infrastructure from the operating system to the operating system services all the way up through the applications is a key enabler of our Dynamic Systems Initiative strategy. As importantly, however, is design for operations. In today's world, the reason why management and maintenance is so high and why the cost is so exorbitant is because management is technically a bolt-on. What needs to happen is applications and solutions that are brought to your business need to be designed from the ground up for operations. This is a core element of what we call DSI, and in fact there's a technology known as the system definition model, which in fact is what allows us to encapsulate that knowledge that you see on the far right there in a model so that you can build and design for operations. If we can change the sort of nature of the way applications are built with a life cycle approach from design for operations from the point of design all the way through to deploy and operate, we believe we can significantly reduce the cost of maintaining and managing existing systems and bringing new systems online. So these 3 things are the key enablers: virtualized infrastructure, design for operations, and knowledge-driven management. And you're going to see a lot of this come to life when you see the demonstrations in a little bit around our virtualization technology and around System Center 2007 Beta 2. But as importantly as DSI is to the management business, it also has a lot of the elements that are very important to how we intend to go after the security business. Protect information and control access. This is almost an oxymoron, right? How many of you have end users who want complete unfettered access to information and to resources? Everybody. How many of you want to actually have some control? How many of you want to be able to sort of impose the right level of control on access? Everyone wants to give the access to the employees or the people who need to make decisions so that they can move the business forward. But in the end, there are so many different risks in doing so in an unfettered fashion. The challenge in today's world is the security products and security vendors that are delivering those offerings to you and to the rest of the marketplace are very fragmented. They may have the checkbox, but they do not have an integrated offering. They either acquired them or they just have something sort of sitting there on the product list that is not integrated and is in fact not comprehensive across the entire challenge that you have. As you saw last night in Bob's keynote, our strategy is to help you with technologies and products that help you, 1, fundamentally secure the platform, 2, secure the PC and server operating system, secure the server applications, and secure the edge. We will also make available to you services that can extend those on-premise offerings so that you can have either a choice of going on-premise or off-premise or extending that on-premise with a value add to create depth and defense in depth. That is our security product strategy. Comprehensive meaning we have a product offering across the entire scenarios that I just described. Integrated, not only integrated with each other, but integrated through the stack. Integrated with each other is an example of everything. All of our security products will require Active Directory. Active Directory as a common identity, as a common repository for all that identity, is the nexus around which we build not only our security product offerings, but what you saw last night in Chris Caposella's presentation, also all of our collaboration technologies. Presence is just the flip side of identity. right? The fact that you have a common store means that you can do all that presence technology. So integrated means not only integrated together, but integrated with the core technologies in a deep fashion so that you have the most secure environment by application. A great example of that is Antigen. Antigen actually secures SharePoint, it secures messaging, it secures instant messaging. So it is a horizontal application, but its power comes from the fact that it is integrated deeply in a vertical fashion with each of those applications. That's what integrated means. Additionally, it also means integrated with all of that management infrastructure. The MOM, the SMS, all of that infrastructure is the back-end infrastructure for our security offering. So there's no parallel infrastructure that you need to build and to deploy to manage patches or virus rollouts. That is, we think, a very important aspect to what will help you drive out the cost of protecting information and controlling access. And finally, simplified. The quite reality of today is, how many consoles do you think you have to look at to actually secure your environment? From PC to edge to secure to serve, I mean, it's just mind-numbing. There are so many different consoles, there are so many different packages, and it's just too complicated. We're not going to solve this overnight, but a core design principle for us is to reduce the total number of consoles through which you have to act, to take action on the system, and to build what we call an appliance-like experience. Many of you and many of our other customers have told us they're buying appliances for all of the edge workloads because, hey, why? They're simple, easy to deploy, no worries, just plug it in, it works. Okay? That experience should be the experience of our software too. The form factor of appliances is one thing, the experience is the other. We'll work with all of our hardware partners to build appliances, but our primary motivation is to build a simple, application-like experience across this stack. In so doing, we think we can build you an offering that is very comprehensive and will solve those business needs, enabling you to protect the information and control access to business-critical data. And that brand is Microsoft Forefront. Okay, so how do we get there? How do we transition from these promises and these investments to actually helping you? Microsoft has been working with many of our customers and actually some other folks in the industry as well around what we call optimization models. How many of you have heard of this? Anybody? Essentially, let me tell you a little bit of a story. For the last year and a half or so, we have been profiling about 7,500, maybe 10,000 of our top customers. And the profiles have been to understand where they are in the state of deployment of our technologies. Not so that we can go sell them more, but so that we can understand where they are. And in so doing, it sort of led us to this insight that really there are kind of 4 basic categories that customers fall into. The far left is basic, the next one over is standardized, then rationalized, and then dynamic. The customers who are in basic category, and don't take this as an offensive term, it's just a term that says their leverage of their infrastructure is pretty basic, find that IT is actually a cost center, not an enabler of business. And everything is done manually. Their worst day of their life is Patch Tuesday. Because what ends up happening is they've got to run around and do everything manually. There's no process. They don't have any infrastructure knowledge captured anywhere. And the result of that is it's a cost center, and that customer is in a bad state. As you move up towards more dynamic, what we found is that the customers are using technologies in a different way. They're using technologies like Active Directory and group policy to manage the desktop, to actually lock down that desktop. Or they're using virtualization technology to create a more dynamic data center. What we found when we profiled our customers, and I'd be interested to sort of see head nods, is that about 70% of the Microsoft customers fell into the basic and just slightly right of basic category into standardized. When you aggregate all of their implementations. Some technologies, obviously, they were more over to the right and to the dynamic. But when you aggregate them, most customers fell into this. And what that means is you, just like they are doing a lot of running around. And the software is not doing as much of the heavy lifting as it could be to enable your success. Okay? That is a fundamental insight. And so now what we have developed is an approach, a model, and a series of capabilities that we're building for that will enable you to actually start moving further and further to the right to a more dynamic infrastructure. This paradigm is also true across the application stack. It's also true across the collaboration stack. And we're approaching each of these with this model approach. Because when we do this, we have found that we're having much richer discussions with you. Not like, hey, how is the AD deployment going? But what is your identity and management capability? And what do you want it to be? And then, okay, here are the technologies that we should plan on. And that's a very different discussion. And it's very powerful. And in fact, forms the rest of my presentation. The capabilities of the optimization model are identity and access management, desktop server and device management, security and networking, data protection, and IT process and policy. When was the last time you went to a Microsoft event and didn't see a product on a slide? We sell products, but the interesting insight here is that actually what you need is capability, not products. The products are the way that we satisfy that capability. And that is an important insight and something that we're actually driving from all the way from those promises down into those workloads and how we make it real. So it's not just a marketing campaign. It actually is making it real in a way that you can take advantage of. Okay. So with that as a framework, and in 20 minutes or less, I actually now want to switch gears a bit. And I want to switch gears to a lot of demonstration. Okay? So in the first demonstration, we're going to have a product manager from the Windows Client team come out and talk to you a bit about identity and access management capabilities and the investments that we're making in Vista to enable you to lock down environments in a different way than you're able to today. So with that, David Zipkin.
Thanks, Bob. So we have made a lot of investments in management in Windows Vista, many of those in the area of group policy. So now you can use group policy in your Active Directory infrastructure to make all kinds of management changes remotely. You can configure IE7, you can change a computer's power settings, and you can also control access to PCs. So for example, this is a 1 gigabyte flash drive. And for many people, for many CIOs and CSOs, this is a nightmare. On this 1 gigabyte flash drive, I can put over 5 million usernames, social security numbers, and addresses. If I was to print out all the data on this 1 gigabyte device, it would stack up over 9 stories tall. So this is clearly a threat, but it's not a new threat. People have been solving this for a number of years, but not in a granular or simple way. In fact, we've heard of a lot of customers.
Yeah, go ahead. I was just going to ask the question, how many of you have ever gone to a USB drive with epoxy? We've actually literally heard of customers taking an epoxy gun to the USB drives to make sure that nobody can do this.
Right.
Plug a USB card or USB disk drive into it.
It's just too big a business risk at times to chance. We've heard of people cutting wires, filling it up with epoxy, doing whatever they need to do to make sure that data doesn't leave the enterprise. So as I was saying, though, in Windows Vista, we have a new way to configure and control this granularly. So for example, on the screen, we're looking at my new group policy settings. And I'm able to make a comprehensive policy that's right for my company. So what you can see here is that I've enabled certain kinds of devices. I've decided to allow all mice and all keyboards. That entire class of device is okay because I think it poses a small business risk. I've also gone ahead and enabled or allowed one type of USB flash drive. I'm not sure if you can see this, but this is a biometrically authenticated flash drive. Now I've decided that there's a limited risk here because if a user loses it, well, it's going to be very hard for someone else to get access to the data. So I've decided to allow this and only this kind of flash drive. And then the setting on the bottom, well, that blocks everything else besides the devices I just mentioned. So let's see how it works. I'll pull open my computer, and I'm going to plug in my standard run-of-the-mill flash drive. And watch in the bottom right as it tries to install, and you're going to see that it fails. And it fails because the policy prevents it. As you saw earlier, I did not add that to my allowed list. It was part of the blocked devices. But now, I'm going to plug in that biometric device I talked about earlier. And because this is on my allow list, well, it's a different story now. In fact, watch what happens. Here we go. It's installing. Okay, and I have 3 partitions now of this flash device. Now, we can go a step farther, too, because we've heard our customers ask for even more granularity. People have said to us, well, I want to allow these devices to be installed, but I still want to control how they're used. So using a second set of group policy options, I can configure per user whether users can write or read to these devices. So let me illustrate that. I'll pull open that flash device. And you can see, of course, that I can read from it. But when I try and copy this document over, these company secrets, it's denied. I've decided to set a policy that is right for my company. And in this case, I've decided not to allow write access to this device. So the combination of all these newsgroup policy settings gives much more control and gives companies a much better handle on their corporate data.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. So that's an example of what we mean by a capability. The capability of identity access and management is not just about one product. That particular scenario you just saw there was actually a combination of Windows Vista Client with Active Directory and the group policy objects within Active Directory and GPMC to manage it. What this means is that you have a whole set of technology that allow you now to have exactly the kind of control that you want to have to the right content. Enable the user to do the things that you want to do while still having control and still being able to meet your regulatory compliance requirements. Okay? So that's an example of what we're talking about here. As we move from identity and access management to desktop server and device management, there's a whole different set of challenges that come to the fore. Okay? In this category, we have many, many technologies, but essentially the capability is about giving you the ability to manage a distributed system at the service level. And if you have service level requirements for your PC and your server environment, you need a set of tools that allow you to absolutely have that control and to manage remotely that entire infrastructure. Okay? So in this next demonstration, we're going to have, if I can get the mouse to work properly, you probably blocked it on me. Actually, before that is the every one of you knows that System Center Operations Manager 2007 Beta 2 is available today. You can go up to the Microsoft.com website and download it. Download the ISO file. And it has everything there except for SQL, so I hope you have a SQL server in your environment. I'm sure you do. And with that, I'm going to bring up Barry Schilmover, who's going to come up and give us a great demonstration of System Center Operations Manager and actually go through a couple of different scenarios. One is managing a packaged application, and one is managing a custom line of business application. And with that, I would also like to thank SAP. SAP has announced their full support for the WS Management Protocol. And the WS Management Protocol is an agentless environment for managing heterogeneous systems. And what you'll see over here is a very large SAP implementation on HP Gear and System Center Operations Manager 2007. And with that, Barry.
Thank you. So I wanted to spend a few minutes here going through how Operations Manager can manage really complex distributed applications. And as Bob said, we actually have SAP running on this system over on your left that sounds like a jet engine. And I want to set up the environment. So we do have SAP on there. There's 2 terabytes of storage. There's about 10 servers in there. Several implementations of SAP. And Operations Manager is managing the whole environment. Now, if you've used MOM 2005 in the past, Operations Manager, you'll notice, is quite a bit different. We've redesigned the console. We now have a single console. And the reason we can do that is we have really granular role-based security now that is tied back into Active Directory. So this is my view as an operations manager, but what I wanted to do, Bob, is I wanted to show what your experience might be if you were to log into the same console. So what we'll do here is we'll split the screen. You'll notice on the top part, that would be the general manager's view. You notice that I can see things like different performances on order processing and orders coming into the system. And it's kind of hard to see, but on the topology view up top, all Bob sees are warnings, whereas on mine, I actually see critical alerts. If I don't fix the problems, those critical alerts will actually roll up into Bob's, and then I'll be in trouble. So let's go back to the main console, and I'll drill a little bit more into that console and give you a feel for it. So on this main page, I have the new dashboard view. And the dashboard view allows me to customize the information that I need on a daily basis. Up in the left-hand corner here, I have the new diagram view. It's quite a bit different than what we had in Operations Manager 2005. And I'll drill into that in a second. We have the normal alerts view, and we have the new performance view. Now, I see that there's a critical alert, and one of the policies that we have at work is if a production system has a critical alert, we bring one of our hot standby systems online. Now, in the rack, I have a WS Management-enabled ILO 2 system from Hewlett-Packard. And what I'm going to do is, again, I'll split the screen. You'll actually notice that my screen will drop to the bottom right, and the top will actually stay dark. And what I'll do is I can actually execute a WS management call right from my operations manager. This will actually go out to that machine that's currently turned off, and that's why it's black in the top left-hand corner. It'll go out there, it'll perform the WS management task, and when it comes back, you see another new feature down here. It actually tells me within my task console that it executed successfully. In a few seconds here, what you'll see is you'll actually see the system start to power up. And once we see that, you see the cursor in the top left-hand corner, you'll see the big HP logo, and then we'll switch back to full screen, and you'll actually see it. I'll actually drill down a little bit further. So there's the plan. So what we'll do is we'll go full screen again, and I'll drill down into the topology view. So the new diagram view is very, very powerful. Not only is it more graphic intensive, I can do things like pan and zoom. As you can imagine, my topology view can be quite complex. I won't be able to do that. I can also change the views, and if I don't want to look in a tree and I want to look at boxes, I can do that as well. So if I look at the web orders, the front end, I can see that my IIS servers and my SQL servers are good. We also have synthetic transactions built into Operations Manager 2005, which simulates the customer experience. So I know that my customers can actually come in and that they can actually place orders. If I pan over to the left here, I can see that I actually have a warning in my sales and distribution portion. If I expand my two systems, I'll see that I actually have critical alerts. Let me make that a little bit larger. And I can see that that critical alert is actually on the order processing within SAP. If I select my system, I can also, in complicated environments, I have problem path, and what problem path will do is it'll fade everything except for the critical errors, so I can actually track my problems. So now that we know that the problem is in order processing, let's switch back and drill a little bit further into the actual alert. If I pull up the knowledge for this alert, the knowledge has changed quite a bit since Operations Manager 2005. Before we had knowledge, and we would tell you within the knowledge what the resolutions are. We may have built tasks into the management pack to allow Operations Manager to actually perform those tasks, but you actually had to go out of that particular view to run those tasks. What we do now is we can actually embed a whole bunch of different tasks and views right within the knowledge. So the first view I'll pull up is the actual performance of my SAP system. To explain it, the orange line up top, those are the orders currently being pumped into the system. These are customers placing orders. SAP is pulling these orders. The red line is my dialog instance actually processing them, making sure the credit card is legitimate, actually taking it out of inventory, etc. Right away, I can see that I'm just not keeping up with demand. The orders coming in is about double of what the orders that I'm processing. So if I take a look a little further, I can actually pull up a report here. And this report is generated by one of our partners, Tidal Software, with their Horizon for SAP Management Pack. And it's quite a long report, but what it tells me is that normally we complete the day by 3 o'clock, but the current load, we're going to exceed that by 45 minutes. That means a couple of things. It means we're going to have to pay people to stay overtime. Potentially, it also means that our customers are not going to get the orders on time. So let's try to figure out what we can do to fix that problem. Looking under the resolution, I can see that indeed there is a bottleneck in the order processing, and potentially bringing another one online will help. Again, we've embedded a task right within the knowledge that allows me to log in. I'll put my credentials, because we don't allow just anybody to do this. Get the password right. And when I execute the task, Operations Manager will do several things. It'll actually go to the SAP system, make sure that the extra systems that are going to run these dialog instances are up and running, make sure their services are running, make sure the components are installed, and actually notify SAP that this new system is actually coming online. You can see, again, it tells me that it starts successfully. If I close this, you can actually start to see the alerts get resolved. If I drill into the sales and distribution view here, to look a little bit further, you can see a couple of things. One, you'll actually see that I've resolved both my server and my order processing to green, as well as the service, which was yellow before, is now back to green. In a few seconds, you'll actually, if we were to stay on this view, you'll actually see that we discover a new instance within this new server to take up that load. If we switch the active alerts, if we're lucky, the alerts will actually get resolved. So this one hasn't got resolved yet, but it will happen automatically. So there it is. It just disappeared on us. So what I've shown you is managing applications such as SAP. But a lot of us actually have applications that are homegrown, or you may have applications that rely on things like websites and databases and whatnot. So what we wanted to do is spend a little bit of time in another console here to show you how easy it is using the service designer, or the distributed application designer, to actually build your own distributed application. So if we can change the screen to that view, there we go. So within the console, if I create a new distributed application, I can give it a name, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Pet Shop. And if you've used MSDN, you've probably seen Pet Shop. We also have some templates. There's only a couple in our beta too, but we will have more. This is a line of business web application. And if I pull it up, it'll pre-populate some objects for me. So this one up top is the website that I want to take a look at, and this is the database. And if I pull up the databases, I can see that the one I want is Pet Shop over here. If I try to drag that into the website, it won't allow it, because Operations Manager is aware that that particular container can only host websites. So I can drop that one into the database. I can choose a website and drop the website into, oops, drag that into the website container. There it goes. And I'm going to actually create another component. For this website, I may have a load balancer. So I'll create a load balancer. And for simplicity, I'll just say that it's a device. In this case, it's because I don't have a management pack for a load balancer, it'll detect it as a server. So I'll create this new container. I will drag it over here just to simplify it a little bit. If I create a relationship between these two, now I tell Operations Manager that should something happen to this load balancer, that will affect my service, my distributed application. And again, I can drag my system in there, and now I'll save it. So what it's actually doing now is it's updating my management pack. It's actually building components of the management pack to build these relationships, to build this distributed application, to pretty much let Operations Manager know that all of these are tied together, and should one of these components fail or go into a warning state, it'll affect the entire service. One of the things that I can do, and this will take time, so we probably won't be able to show all of it, it also generates the diagram view for me. And you can see it's discovered one component. If we waited about 5 minutes, it'll actually discover the whole thing. What we've also done, if you want to learn more about this, we do have a hands-on lab that goes deep dive into this particular technology and allows you to actually play with it.
Excellent.
Thanks
very much, Barry. Appreciate it.
You bet.
So the thing that is, I think, fantastic about that demonstration is twofold. One is it's about the capability. It's about the capability of managing a distributed system, and not only packaged applications, but also easily enabling you to actually manage, via System Center, your own custom line of business applications. The second thing is, as you're seeing, any of you who have used MOM 2005 or prior versions, we are moving from box management to service level management. And that is a very big shift. And having the ability to look at a service all the way from its beginning point to its end point, and being able to ensure the service level quality is critical to the success of your operations. And that's very important to us as we move forward with this business. As I also said, another key enabler of our dynamic systems and that core infrastructure of moving from basic all the way out to the dynamic world is enterprise virtualization technologies. And this is spanning both from the platform all the way up through the management of that virtual machine environment. And so with that, I'd like to ask Jeff Woolsey and Eric Winter to come on up and give you a couple of really great demonstrations of where we're heading with this. Hi, guys.
Thanks, Bob.
You bet.
It's a pleasure to be here to demonstrate our new 64-bit hypervisor-based Windows Server virtualization. Let's go ahead and get started. My assistant Mike is going to bring up the Windows Server virtualization UI. And as you can see, Windows Server virtualization uses a new MMC interface and takes advantage of the latest MMC capabilities in Longhorn Server. We're going to go ahead and bring up our first virtual machine. As you can see by the system properties in Task Manager, this virtual machine is running Windows Server 2003 Standard Edition. And in fact, you can see it's a 32-bit uniprocessor virtual machine. In fact, we created this using the free version of Virtual Server 2005 R2 that you can download today, and we migrated it to Windows Server virtualization. We did this to demonstrate the fact that we're protecting our customers' investments in Microsoft virtualization technology. So if you're one of the 250,000 people who have downloaded the free version of Virtual Server, the full version of Virtual Server available for the last couple months, you know that virtual machines you create today in Virtual Server, you'll be able to easily migrate into Windows Server Virtualization. Let's bring up our second virtual machine. And you can see this one is running Red Hat Enterprise Linux 4 to show the interoperability of Windows Server Virtualization. Now this brings us to a common question. Why is Microsoft supporting non-Microsoft operating systems in their virtualization solutions? Well, the answers are standardization and interoperability. Our customers have told us that they want to standardize on a single platform for virtualization. They don't want to use one virtualization technology for Windows and another virtualization technology for other operating systems. And since the majority of operating systems being virtualized are Windows, it only makes sense that we provide our customers the best platform for virtualization so that they can standardize on Windows Server Virtualization and Longhorn Server. Let's bring up our next virtual machine. And you can see this VM is running Windows Server 2003 Enterprise x64 Edition. This is a 64-bit virtual machine. In addition, we'll bring up Task Manager to show this is a dual processor virtual machine. By supporting multi-processor and 64-bit virtual machines, Windows Server Virtualization takes advantage of the latest hardware advancements, such as multi-core technology and hardware-assisted virtualization. As you can see, we're running two 32-bit uniprocessor virtual machines side by side with this dual processor 64-bit virtual machine, all on the same server. The next, I'd like to talk about our new I/O architecture, our new virtualized I/O architecture. In developing Windows Server Virtualization, we took a long, hard look at one of the most expensive areas to virtualize performance-wise, I/O. And we developed a whole new architecture. The goals of this new architecture are to provide the highest possible performance with the lowest possible overhead without requiring our hardware partners to develop new drivers. In addition, this new architecture enables new hot add functionality within virtual machines. For example, this dual processor x64 virtual machine we actually created without a network adapter. Mike's going to bring up the network connections, and you can see there simply aren't any. Well, with Windows Server Virtualization, it's actually really easy to simply hot add a network adapter. We're going to go back to the Windows Server Virtualization MMC. We're going to select the virtual machine, go to its settings, and simply add a network adapter. Click Add and OK. Go back to the virtual machine, and you can see we've just hot added a network adapter to this virtual machine without downtime. No other hardware virtualization technology provides this functionality for Windows, period. No one. Okay? And this is only the tip of the iceberg when it comes to dynamic features. There's more. But before I show you those, let's move to the next virtual machine. Here is Longhorn Server. And as you can see, this is a 64-bit version of Longhorn Server with 4 gigabytes of memory assigned to it. This is also a great time to mention that we've shattered the previous limitation in Virtual Server, which used to be 3.6 gigabytes of memory per virtual machine. With Windows Server Virtualization, each virtual machine can access more than 32 gigabytes per VM. Again, that's more than 32 gigabytes per VM. In addition, let's bring up Task Manager to show that this is a quad processor virtual machine. With quad processor support, and in fact support for up to 8 processor virtual machines, Windows Server Virtualization scales to run the vast majority of enterprise-class workloads. Now let's suppose we created this quad processor 64-bit virtual machine with 4 gigs of RAM for an Exchange server. And over time, as more people join the company, more people are accessing their mail concurrently, we see an increase in paging. What we want to do is allocate more memory to the virtual machine. Well, with Windows Server Virtualization, it's extremely easy. Now, before we actually do this, I've actually asked Mike to put the cursor where you need to focus, because this next hot add actually occurs so quickly that if you blink, you just may miss it. You see, physical memory, the total memory for this VM is 4 gigabytes of memory. We're going to go up the memory in this VM. Mike's going to go back to the Windows Server Virtualization MMC, go to the virtual machine settings, go to the memory, and we're simply going to change this from 4 gigabytes to 5 and click OK. Go back to the virtual machine, and you can see we've just hot added a gigabyte of memory to this virtual machine, again, without downtime. No other hardware virtualization technology provides this functionality for Windows. Now, this is a great example of the integration between the Windows kernel and the Windows hypervisor to provide our customers, the folks like you guys implementing solutions out there, the best solution in terms of dynamic capabilities and performance. In short, Longhorn Server has been developed to take advantage of hypervisor-based virtualization. Now, I'm sure the question you're all thinking is, when can I get my hands on these bits? We've already said publicly we'll be in beta by the end of the year, and we release Windows Server virtualization within 180 days of Longhorn Server. And again, remember, this is a feature of Longhorn Server. This is Windows Server virtualization. Thank you very much, Bob.
Thanks a lot, Jeff. Appreciate it. So with that, you see actually the capabilities of the platform. In addition to the capabilities of the platform, though, there's also the requirement to manage all these virtual machines. As easy as it is to pop one of these things out, you just shift the problem of resource utilization to management, right? So we have to solve for that as well. And with that, I'd like to have Eric Winter come on up and show us some new technologies we're working on for System Center.
Thanks, Bob. So this is System Center Virtual Machine Manager, a centralized console for managing both Microsoft Virtual Server and the new Windows Server virtualization. Today I'm going to show you how you can use it to optimize your server utilization and rapidly provision virtual machines. Many of us start virtualization to increase utilization and wonder which workloads do we consolidate. Here you see an integrated report using Operations Manager data to point out my least utilized servers and thus the best candidates for consolidation. Now let's go ahead and consolidate one of those servers. So I'm just going to enter the server information here. And here again, I can change the hardware settings of that original server, or, as Jeff just showed, I can change them while the VM is running much later. Now let's assign this to a host and start it. I do want to talk a moment about intelligent placement. A key to maximizing your utilization is placing the VMs on the proper hosts across your network. We leverage, again, Operations Manager data and System Center capacity planning models developed by Microsoft Research to produce this list of recommended hosts for this particular VM workload. The star ranking clearly indicates the best server to host this workload, and the settings that generate these rankings can be easily tuned and customized. I merely choose the top-rated host and continue. Now, before I finish this task, I do want to point out the View PowerScript button. Like a lot of our new management consoles, the Virtual Machine Manager is built on top of our new PowerShell objects. So everything you'll see today can be easily scripted in our command line interface. Now, as you create tens, hundreds, and then thousands of virtual machines, you're going to have to keep track of them. We provide a flexible way of organizing your hosts into resource pools and also viewing them by state, or owner, or operating system. In addition to these running VMs, you must keep track of all the offline building blocks for your virtual machines, like virtual disks, templates, and ISO images. The template in particular is an important object that enables you to encapsulate a complete set of hardware and software settings into an easy-to-use package. Now, we could quickly create a new VM from one of these templates, but I want to show you something even more compelling. Virtualization has enabled the data center to be more agile, but we're not stopping there. Today, it can take weeks to fulfill a request for a new server. Virtual Machine Manager enables workload administrators and developers to create their own VMs in a manageable way. This is our Virtual Machine Manager self-service portal, where I can create, interact with, and manage my own VMs. Now let's go ahead and see how an end user would create a VM in this interface. Simply give the VM a name, and choose a template from among a set published by my administrator. And that's it. I don't even select a host. Again, Virtual Machine Manager uses Operations Manager data and intelligent placement to select the most suitable host for this VM. And there my new VM arrives on the way to booting up and installing. Now I want to assure you that at any point in time, the administrator is in full control. This interface is configured using Active Directory users and groups, and you set policies to control who can do specific actions against resource pools and set policies for limiting usage. At any point in time, the user can see which resources are in use and which are free. And with that, you've seen how Virtual Machine Manager enables you to optimize your server utilization, rapidly provision virtual machines, and centrally control your virtual infrastructure through our Administrator Console, Windows PowerShell, and our new self-service portal.
Great. Thanks very much. Appreciate it. So again, what you're seeing there in the combination of the platform assets of the Windows virtualization technologies and our investments in System Center, as this move from per box environments moves much more towards a service level commitment that you need to make to your business, these technologies enable you to actually start to make your investments much more rapidly and to have your infrastructure be much more agile. At the end of the day, that's what I said earlier, was managing complexity, achieving agility requires those base investments across the platform and across the entire application stack. Okay. You also heard a comment about the Windows PowerShell, formerly known as Monad, for those of you who want to remember it by its old name. What we're going to do now is have Ray Moorman come out and talk to us about how the Exchange team is using PowerShell and driving a new set of capabilities for messaging. So Ray.
Thanks, Bob. Great. Hey. So like Bob said, in Exchange 2007, we really took the opportunity to rethink our management model. So we took PowerShell, and we took all of our administrative tasks, and we built them within this PowerShell environment. And then so this console you're seeing here, it's all built on top of those administrative tasks. So when I go into like recipient configuration and I navigate around, those are all tasks that are displaying these objects for me. So let's go create a new distribution group here. And we'll go ahead and call it marketing. And when I create this new distribution group, this wizard, you'll see that the actual task that was run to create this distribution group shows up in my status here. So if I go into the management console here, and I go into switch over to my shell, to my PowerShell environment, I can actually use the example in the console to help me learn walking through the shell. So let's start with a new distribution group again. And you notice with my tab completion, I can go new and let's say distribution group, and it shows up distribution group for me. If I want to do a name, I want to do sales this time instead of marketing. And then I notice that I have a fairly long parameter coming up, but I can actually tab complete parameters as well as the actual command, which is very helpful for a typer like myself. So let's finish this off here. And actually, I didn't put in all of the required parameters, but instead of just giving me an error, it actually allows me to enter them after the fact. So it prompts me for each of them. So let's see here, distribution and sales. And now we've created our first distribution group right through the PowerShell. Very easy to learn. But where the real power comes into play is actually being able to do bulk updates and bulk management of your Exchange environment. So for example, if I look at my recipients here, mailbox, I see I have a number of users. If I wanted to update their send quota limit, and let's say I want to update that to like a gigabyte, I could go into the console and click one by one and make those changes. Or I can actually use the results of the get mailbox, and I can pipe those rich results to the set mailbox command. And I'll actually set the prohibit send quota, and I'll set that to 1 gigabyte. You notice I didn't have to deal with bits or bytes. It just figured it out for me. And it's going to go ahead and make that change. And I can view that change there. And so it was really simple. Now, changing objects, that's great, but I also want to have some real custom views into my environment, something that I might not actually see through the console. So again, looking at our mailboxes, maybe I actually want to see how they're distributed against databases. So I'm going to go ahead and group them by database. And I see, I've got 4 databases here. I've got five users in this second storage group. Now, I could use this as an input to an automation script that could go ahead and automate load balancing. But right now, I want to create a report for my manager to view this. So I want it in a more visible environment. I could put it into something like HTML, or because PowerShell interacts with COM objects, I could actually use the Office web components I have on the server to show it in a chart format. So let's do that. Great. So you see the new management paradigm that we've created here. It gives us a strong ability to take some of the mundane tasks out of the administrator's hands and allows them to automate this. And so hopefully they can implement some things like unified messaging, right?
Excellent. Great. Thanks very much, Ray. Appreciate it. Windows PowerShell is an incredibly powerful environment. Those of you who have been working on Unix or other platforms for many years have regretted the fact that you could not get that same level of control of a Windows platform. As we move forward, Windows PowerShell is the foundation upon which all this GUI gets built. Exchange will take advantage of it in 2007. System Center Operations Manager takes advantage of it as well. It's actually available today as a free download for Windows 2003 environment and going into the Longhorn timeframe. Windows PowerShell is an extremely, extremely important transition for us, giving you complete control of the system through whether your GUI infrastructure or through a command line shell with a very powerful scripting environment. So all of those different demonstrations are all intended to show you the capabilities we're trying to deliver in the server and desktop and device management capability. As we transition forward here into the next category of security, I wanted to show you how a customer today is actually using some of our current existing security products and then show you exactly where we're headed in the next releases of our products. So go ahead and roll video, please.
Jelly Belly is a worldwide company. We're in almost every major retailer you could name, from Harrods of London to Walmart to Costco, all the way down to Susie's Hallmark.
We sell in 25 countries worldwide, and to communicate the fun, the excitement that is Jelly Belly, it requires fun, exciting presentations, graphics that pop, video that pops.
In Jelly Belly's case specifically, they have executives that are traveling the world looking for new ideas for their business and new markets for their business. During that time, they've got to stay connected to their data, to their company, and they need to do so in a way that is both secure and also provides them with the information they need.
Innovation for Jelly Belly is its products and its flavors, its colors. Getting that innovation to market is the utility of a VPN solution that allows us to reliably move that information, those ideas, those pictures, those images, to the field sales force who can present that and go to market and get us on the shelf.
What Jelly Belly needed was a solution that provided them with the ability to connect their internal and their external users in a secure but easy to use way. The path that they were on technologically was becoming more complex and requiring more and more resources to support it and enhance it.
The previous VPN connection that we used had a tremendous overhead to it. So our data warehousing solution that we have here on campus would tend to deliver data so slow that their session would time out and tend to be very frustrating for them. Calling in for support, it seemed to be very difficult for us to find the right support technician in the company to help us out directly. So the time to resolution seemed to be fairly long. And with the new ISA VPN solution, it has much less overhead and it's much faster for them to connect and receive all the data in a timely fashion. One of the biggest impacts to deploying Microsoft's ISA server is a more reliable, faster VPN solution that more closely fits our IT skill sets, which means it's easier to administer and a lower total cost of ownership to the IT organization and the business as a whole.
The uniqueness and the breakthrough with ISA Server is the ability for Microsoft to protect data in motion. Microsoft's ISA Server on the NS Series appliance gives the end user a predictable, reliable, manageable device. Performance tuning is done. Driver compatibility is already addressed. It's pre-configured. It's ready to go.
What Jelly Belly got was a solution that addressed both the user requirements for remote connectivity and the internal requirements for ease of update, ease of management, and lower cost. With the old system, we didn't have the same reliability now that we have with the newly placed Microsoft VPN system. It works like a charm. I know that if I can ask my sales team to connect, they connect immediately. They can respond right away to any requests I have. They have access to the data warehouse. There are no excuses. And in sales, when there's no excuses, there's sales.
Okay, so what you see there is an example of a customer who is, again, has a very specific business problem. They want to get their salespeople to have access to the data. Every time your CEO comes to you and says, hey, look, just make it happen. Secure anywhere access, don't worry about it. Just make it happen. That's the same problem that Jelly Belly had. And they used ISA, partnering with one of our hardware vendors and network engines, in an appliance form factor to enable that solution. The key to the ability to actually do that well, again, was Active Directory. You'll note throughout the entire presentation today, I keep repeating Active Directory, as do all the speakers. It is the linchpin across our entire infrastructure strategy. So, as I said, security and networking, we're thinking through the entire stack, not just about how you enable secure anywhere access, from in a wireless fashion or a wired fashion or in a VPN fashion, but how you build products and how we build products to enable policy-driven behavior of an organization. As you saw last night, our strategy in the security business spans from the PC all the way out to the cloud. And so with that, what I'd like to do is actually have one of our product managers from the security business, Josue Fontanez, come out and talk to us about client and application security. And frankly, this will be the first time you all get a chance to see Microsoft forefront client security. So Josue.
Thanks, Bob. I know that many of you were at Bob Muglia's session yesterday and learned how Microsoft security products can help you protect information and control access in your environment. Today I'm going to drill down on protecting information and show how Microsoft Antigen and Forefront Client Security deliver defense in depth to help protect mission-critical applications like Exchange Server as well as business desktops. So to start out the demo, I'm going to show you how Microsoft Antigen protects Exchange Server traffic. And it does this first at the SMTP gateway and then at the Exchange Information Store. So I'm here in the Antigen Management Console. Now with Antigen, I'm able to run multiple antivirus engines from different vendors, as you see here, simultaneously, which really helps me to reduce the chance of a virus getting out my network versus if I were running any single engine alone. So here at the SMTP gateway, I'm going to select to run the engines of 5 different vendors. And then I'm going to set my scanning setting to max certainty, which means I'll have the best chance at catching viruses as they try to get on my network. Now at the Exchange Information Store, I'm going to select to run the engines of 4 different vendors, and then I'm going to leave my scanning setting at neutral, which means that Antigen is going to dynamically select the 2 most effective engines while optimizing for the performance of my Exchange server. So let's say an infected mail were to come in from the internet. It would first be scanned at my SMTP gateway. Now, if by chance it gets through all 5 of those engines that I've selected, it's going to be scanned by a totally different set of engines, which really helps me to protect my users. And best of all, it just avoids me having to come in at 3 a.m. in the morning when my network is infected. So I've configured protection for my Exchange server traffic. Now I want to configure protection for my desktops. To do this, I've installed Microsoft Forefront Client Security, which provides me centrally managed anti-malware protection for the desktops in my environment. So what I'm going to do here in the Client Security Management Console is create and deploy an anti-malware policy for the desktops in my environment. Now I've used several different security products, and I need to be a security expert. When I'm setting policy, I need to know if it's a virus, a worm, or a Trojan. I don't have the time to stay up to date on all of these threats. The great thing with client security is that configuring policy that protects me from all of these different threats is super easy to do. So now that I've created the policy, I now want to deploy it to the machines in my environment. Now when I do this, a group policy object is automatically created and applied to the organizational unit that I select. Because client security integrates with Active Directory, I no longer have to maintain separate infrastructure for targeting policy to my desktops. So I've shown you that we need to have layered defenses to protect my company. I also need to have a really good understanding of the state of security in my environment. With client security reporting, I'm able to get a quick snapshot of the key issues. For example, in the security summary report, as you see here, I'm really easily able to see alerts in my environment, any computers that require attention, threat information, as well as vulnerability information. This allows me to quickly see the trends over time, as well as anything I need to take action on right now. So I've shown you how we've configured protection for Exchange Server, as well as for the desktops in my environment. Let's see how this all works together. So I'm going to demonstrate a user on the internet who wants to send mail to her grandson at Contoso. Now, Grandma just got a new machine. Well, it's not a brand new machine. It's been handed down about 4 times, but either way, she's excited now that she's high tech. So she just got this mail that talks about this great deal on photo prints, and she wants to forward it along to her grandson, along with a few pictures that she's received. Now, Grandma's machine doesn't have any anti-spyware protection, and the antivirus that she did get with her PC, that's about 8 or 9 years out of date. So it's no surprise to you that her machine's probably pretty infected. Either way, she decides to forward it along to her grandson at Contoso. Let's go to his machine and see what happens at his end. So Mark's a sales rep at Contoso, and I'm sure all of you know the Mark in your organization because he always seems to be the one that clicks on all of the attachments with the funny names on them, even when he doesn't know who they're from. I see quite a few heads nodding in the audience agreeing with that. So anyway, so Mark comes in the morning, he sees this mail from his grandma. Oh, and it seems like she sent him some pictures in a zip file. So he decides to open it up. Oh, and he sees there's a picture. It was from their trip to the San Diego Zoo. Oh, he's pretty happy about that. He sees actually, it's kind of interesting, there's several zip files in the original attachment. So he decides to dig a little deeper, and he gets a text message that Microsoft Antigen for Exchange removed the infected file. So even though the virus was zipped multiple times, Antigen was able to crack open those zip files and remove that infected file. But you know Mark, and being the type of person he is, he's not done. Even though he's seen a couple of warnings, he decides to click on the website that's in the mail. Now, once there, he sees this pretty sweet deal for prints. I mean, a penny for a print, that's actually pretty good. So he decides to get more information. Click here to get started. Oh, and he sees like there's an error. So being the type of person he is, well, he's going to troubleshoot this himself. So he decides to click here to get help. He sees a few warning messages. What do these mean anyway, he says, and decides to run the program. Fortunately, Microsoft Forefront Client Security is there to protect him from the spyware he was about to download. Once again, problem averted. So as you can see, using Microsoft Forefront Client Security and Microsoft Antigen, I'm able to protect my organization from the latest threats at multiple layers in my environment, as well as see the overall state of security in my organization. And with the integration into Active Directory, I'm able to simplify the day-to-day administration of my security infrastructure. At the end of the day, that just means I'm spending less time chasing after security issues and more time on driving value to the business.
Excellent. Thanks a lot, Josue. Again, capability focused. Not everybody's got the grandma who's sending the mail, but we all have that same problem. It all happens, we all know about it, and you get called. The integration you saw there, not only of what we're doing with third-party engines, but also integration across from Active Directory to SQL reporting services to the Microsoft Forefront Client Security, and having one end-to-end architecture that enables your success. That's security and networking. As we move into the last of the capabilities, it's the data protection and recovery capability. I wanted to show you this video of one of our customers who's actually using Data Protection Manager today in quite a very rich way. So go ahead and roll video, please.
This is the biggest organization next to the military on the Eastern Seaboard. We have 6,000 plus vehicles.
We have data over multiple areas. We encompass all 5 boroughs.
It's a huge amount of data that has to be kept. And we have to keep it for 7 years. And 7 years is an awful long time.
We were using DLT tapes. We were looking at a 24 to 48 hour period of backup time. Our backups actually have to be maintained for up to 10 years. You can amass about a good 1,500 tapes. And of the 1,500, if we're lucky, we could have about 800 of those good without being bad, popped, or anything else that could go rogues.
I don't even want to begin to tell you how long it took for them to just say, okay, I give up already.
DPM, we got that and we looked at it, we said, oh, this is going to be crazy. You know, we thought it was going to be one of those, oh, do this, then patch this, then do that. To our surprise, we brought it out, we put the CD in, and we had it going on 26 different servers in about less than a half hour. And before we know it, we had snapshots of all the data, all the drives, and to our surprise, it worked. We can have shadow copies every 15 minutes, half hour or so. but we really don't need it because they're so resilient. We are able to restore in a magnitude of a fraction of the time that we were doing from tape. It would take us an hour just to load the tape and get everything back. With the shadow copy, I can bring it back in 5 minutes.
Data Protection Manager allows me to bring that back now when they need it.
We did have an actual user who had a very intensive budget spreadsheet just evaporate, poof, into thin air. When we deployed the DPM on her unit, for some reason we hadn't heard from Mary for 6 months. She said there was no need to call you because you gave me the tool, so it made us happy. It's cut at least 18 hours out of my schedule. I can archive to DVD or CD with this. I can't do that from tape. 18 hours a week. It's safe to say 18 hours a week.
It's just all around a better product. It's helped the Department of Sanitation be more efficient for the city. It's easy to manage, implement, easy to bring back the data that you need. Data Protection Manager makes me look like a superhero to my supervisors. DPM is the greatest.
I love those guys. Those guys crack me up. Data Protection Manager. What's actually quite interesting about that video as well as the technology is, for all of you know, tape backup is an extremely manual process. Everything about the backup process is manual. What's worse is the recovery process, right? Backing up is one thing, but how many of you actually ever go to tape? I mean, you just don't want to do it because it's such an arduous process. What you're going to see in the next demonstration of Data Protection Manager, first of all, who's heard of Data Protection Manager? Who's using it? Oh, a lot of the hands went down. What you'll find out here is how easy it is to actually extend the current infrastructure with DPM, leveraging all those assets of Active Directory and the Windows client to create an environment where, you know what happens? They don't call you anymore. Actually, you get self-service recovery, which is the ultimate nirvana. That help desk call is the most expensive call around. So with that, I'm going to have Jason Buffington from our DPM team come on up and talk to us a little bit about what we're doing with DPM. Hey,
hi, Bob. So for my demonstration today, I've got a domain controller, pair of file servers, and a platform running System Center Data Protection Manager. And if you've only got 2 file servers in your environment, you can pretty much back it up any way you want. But if you've got 60 schools or 120 branch offices or 1,200 branch banks, that's a much different story. So when we talk about managing complexity and achieving agility, that's what DPM was built for. It was built to manage the complexity of data protection by centralizing one's backups. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to go into the DPM console. And the first thing you'll notice is that, speaking of complexity, DPM is built for an IT generalist. There's a lot of workflow, a lot of wizards to go through in this. So we're going to go ahead and start with a protection group. Protection group is just a policy. How are we going to back up the data? So how about something like North, East, Branch, Offices? And at this point, we're going to go ahead and see from Active Directory, it's going to give us a list of the servers that DPM is actually running on. AD actually helps us in a lot of different ways. When we first installed the product, it gave us a list of all the servers in a left-hand window. And any machine that we wanted to protect, we simply moved it from the left side to the right side of the screen. Probably what's more important is that we monitor AD, and if a new server is introduced into the environment, we're going to go ahead and notify the administrator that we need to protect that box as well. How many times has a backup administrator actually been called and said, hey, I need to restore some data. Oh, you didn't know you were supposed to back up that box? AD solves that for us by letting DPM monitor it. In this case, we'll browse the environment, and we'll see a list of all the shares that are out there. In this case, how about we do the Contoso directory, the executives, and legal. We'll say yes to that. Take all the defaults. This is really the core of DPM, because what it's going to ask us at this point is, how often are we going to synchronize? How often are we going to snap? By synchronize, what I mean is that DPM is going to capture byte-level changes on all the production boxes, drop them to a log file, and on an hourly basis, we're going to pull that data back to the DPM server on the back end. Immediately, we're 23 times better protected than we were if you just used last night's tape. We're having an hour of data protection. Now, on the right-hand side, we're going to provide multiple snapshots per day. The default behavior is 3 per day, so we can roll that data not back to last night, but earlier this afternoon, or noon, or even earlier this morning. And if that's not granular enough, we're going to just change the times and say add all of the even-numbered hours to give us a lot more granularity for how much protection goes, and turn off weekends. A few more default settings. Get some confirmations, and that's as easy as it is to do centralized backup. You're going to pick your environment, pick how you protect it, syncs and snaps, and that's it. And oh, by the way, if you want to decide to make it really fit your infrastructure, Let's go ahead and tweak the bandwidth because we're across the wrong side of a wide area connection. Here's a helpful wizard for you. Just tell us how big the pipe is between you and your branch office and how much of that pipe you'd like us to use. And let's squeeze every bit we can with compression as well. That's it. That's data protection.
That's fabulous. I mean, that's the first half of the problem, right? You got to protect that data, do it quickly, do it easily, leverage the infrastructure that you have there. But recovery, as I said, is the real pain.
Yep. Bob, have you ever actually opened up last month's document and then instead of hitting save as for that new version, you hit save instead?
Actually, literally, you're not going to believe me, but I did it last night.
So then you got to enjoy calling the help desk, opening a help desk ticket, waiting several hours. The IT guy gets to get bothered. We think there's a better way to do that. Now, when Microsoft first started developing a backup product, one of the things that you told us was that your users don't like to learn new things. So even if we gave you the ability to restore the data, if it came in a system tray applet or a new web page the users would have to figure out, the users just didn't want to do that. So we decided to go ahead and give you the restore capability to you and your users directly from Windows Explorer or from any Microsoft Office application. So Bob, let's go ahead and open up your directory and employee evaluations.
I'm afraid what you're going to do to me here.
And here's a review document from last year. So let's say, for example, that we need to roll back to an earlier version of this because you've accidentally hit the wrong data on this point. So hit save at that point, call back. Instead of having to call the help desk, how about if we just go and right-click on that file, go to the properties of that file, and now we've introduced a new tab that's out there. This is the previous versions of that data. And immediately we can see all the earlier versions of that data that's out there. We can roll back to any one you want. Now, there's 7 versions here, so you may not know which version you like. You can go ahead and just natively open it up within this document, any version you want, and say, is this the one that I want or not? You can copy it to a different location. So I can keep the one I've been working on all day, but I can still get the original back. Or when all else fails, I don't want to learn about the screens, I just want to restore the data. There, and you're done. No tapes to mount, no indexes to corrupt. That's backup and restore, Bob.
Fabulous. Thanks a lot, Jason. Appreciate it. So again, that is a great scenario. In V1 of Data Protection Manager, we back up file servers. As we move out into the next release of Data Protection Manager, we will back up and restore messaging, Exchange, and database SQL. And now you have a full environment be able to have just as quick as restore as you had right there without all those help desk calls. As important as it is about the technology investments we're making and in the capability investments that we're making for your infrastructure, so too is IT process and policy. As you know, just as well as I, it's people, process, and technology that get great things done. Technology can only go so far. And there have to be investments that we make and that you make in both process and policy. We can enable a lot of the policy stuff where we take the software and marry it to your IT policy. But in terms of the process, a lot of that comes down to great prescriptive guidance from Microsoft or from third parties. Our operations framework, the Microsoft Operations Framework, which is our instantiation of the ITIL framework, the prescriptive patterns and practices that we provide to you, the certification and the guidance that we give you through our Microsoft Learning, all of these are just as important in the terms of the assets that we're bringing to bear against this particular set of problems of managing complexity and protecting information and controlling access. The one last slide I want to highlight for you is, so how do I get there? How do I move further from the basic category or wherever you are in the optimization of your infrastructure to a dynamic infrastructure? Well, the first thing you can do is you can go talk to your Microsoft rep and ask them, what do I need to do? This is language they speak. They've been given all the guidance, all the content, all the proof of concepts, etc., to help you understand where you are and help you move further along this curve. Secondly, you can go up to Microsoft.com/IO where you can get all this information. All of this is effectively packaged up in a way to help you understand where you stand, not only in the model, but also where your capabilities are and where you want them to be. And the products and technologies we showed you today are key enablers of moving you further along that optimization curve. So what do you do next? Well, there's a whole host of things here. First, go get Windows Server Longhorn Beta 2. It's available downstairs in the lab, in the expo, and it's also available online as a download. Windows Compute Cluster Service Edition. If you don't use Compute Cluster, as Bob said last night, it's just a matter of time. The reality is more and more computation is actually moving into an environment where you can remote all that computation to a series of dead nodes and then bring that application forward to the desktop or to our server and recompile the results. We're very excited about the release of this product. Very, very excited. Our customers and partners are telling us really great things about it. The Microsoft Forefront security line of products. Today, if you go to Microsoft.com on the home page, Forefront is the shiny object up there. Go up there, take a look at what we're doing. Go bang against the products. We have them all here. Go use them. Go try them. Go to the hands-on labs and see if those products are suitable for your business today, and if not, give us that feedback. System Center Operations Manager 2007 beta. That's also available today as a download from Microsoft.com. And finally, the infrastructure optimization. Go to Microsoft.com/IO. What I tried to do in today's session was actually give you kind of the highlight, but it's extremely important to me and to Microsoft that you understand that our commitment to the promises, our commitment to the capabilities are designed to make you successful. They're designed to make you ready for that people-ready business. So with that, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of TechEd.